Today we are back looking at the most efficient kits that you can use in Season 1 Core Breach in this particular Tarkov patch. And the biggest difference I would say about this one versus the others is firstly, no insurance for PMCs at all. And the second part is the prevalence of Class 4 armor. So we're going to use both of these things to our advantage in this video. We're going to do 3 stages. We're going to start off with basically nothing, level 1 traders. We're going to then look at the flea market, but without any of the higher requirements for that because a lot of the things are level locked. And then we're going to look at level 20 plus, which is when you can buy most of the good stuff and you've basically got a solid mid-tier gear set that you can buy from the flea market, from other players, and also from the traders themselves. We're going to go straight into the level 1 PMC with nothing on him. Now I do appreciate that some people will probably be past this point, but there's some interesting things in here that you need to be aware of, and it might even be useful if you need to tell your friends or someone else is starting afresh, or you restart your character or whatever. Some of these things have changed a little bit over time. So we're going to first start off with the headset and the earpiece, because this has changed multiple times, and even I'd lost track and had to look this up myself. So when you're first going, there's only 2 headsets that you can really choose from. And the first one is over on Prapor, which is this guy. The GSSH we all know and love, the worst headset in the game, but honestly I actually don't think it's too bad. For 21,000 rubles it's better than having nothing. The other one is over on Skier, and he sells the Opsman Earmore M32. Now there's a big price difference between these two, and the actual audio range between them isn't that great, but I personally prefer the M32s. However, there is a kicker. So Ragman level 1, he sells this guy, and this is flipped back and forth between basically allowing headsets and not allowing headsets. And these days, only the GSSH is allowed with the SSH Steel 68. So if you don't have any other helmets and you need to buy something from the trader, at 36k, this honestly isn't bad because this thing is quite good at ricocheting off shots. But if you use any of the other headsets, you will not be able to use the SSH 68 steel helmet on top at the same time, which is kind of unfortunate. So you basically have to go for the GSSH if you also want to run this helmet as well. So you have the flexibility to use the M32s if you're using literally any of the regular helmets. So if you've got those in your stash, like a Bastion helmet or a Ratnik or a TC 2002 or any of those kinds, then feel free to go and choose an M32 headset that you can buy from Skier. Whereas if you're going to use the SSH Steel, just bear in mind that you need to be using the GSSH with it or you can't really hear anything. And I think that having a headset is better than having no headset, irrespective of whether there's a helmet or not. I'd rather wear a headset than a helmet, personally. So if you have nothing else in your stash, this is probably the combination that I would probably recommend now as a starting point, given that you can wear this, and Class 3 will save you against some scavs and things like that. One nice thing about the SSH helmet that people don't realize is that it does actually cover ears, even though it doesn't look like it. So this will save you against shotgun scavs. They do have to hit you specifically in the face. It covers you from the side, it covers you from the back, and also if you just get hit kind of generally on the top of your helmet, which is quite cool. So this is actually kind of worth. Now the only time that I would recommend maybe not using this is that there is a cool barter, and this is over on Prapor for these, the PNV 57E night vision goggles. They only cost 2 Apollo 6, and you're probably going to find quite a few of these in your raids just out in the world because they're very, very common. And the funny thing about this is that the night vision goggles are actually quite good. They surprised me when I used them last time. They were almost better than one of the monocular ones, so they're actually decent. But the kicker is they only fit to this, the tank helmet, which means that you definitely can't wear a headset, and also you can't really hear anything. For pitch black middle of the night raids, it actually doesn't matter too much, to be honest. You're better off being able to see with the downside of not being able to hear, rather than using a flashlight or something that's going to give you away. And if you come up against somebody who's got like GPMVGs on or something proper, you're probably going to die anyway. So I wouldn't worry about it too much. But this does give you an option to play at night time, skulk around, and actually be able to see, which is pretty cool. So moving down, we're then going to put on a face cover. There's really only one choice here, which is the balaclava. I definitely think that you should put one on because the difference between somebody seeing your face like this and somebody seeing your face with a balaclava of some description on, I'll just stick on a Shamar for now. You can just see how much harder it is for somebody to pinpoint your face if you're kind of sat with like foliage behind you, so there's like trees behind you and whatnot. Your face just contrasts much more against that background if you're not wearing a balaclava of some kind. So even the crappy one from Ragman is better than not wearing anything at all, and it's so cheap you may as well put it on just for that small chance of being concealed versus somebody spotting you. Okay, so now onto the armor. So we're going to have to put on some kind of body armor. The problem here, this is where the insurance problem kind of raises its head a little bit, because in the past I historically have said, well, just go and pick anything. Go and get yourself a pack of soft armor if you don't want anything else, because people are probably not going to pick it up. Actually, it was usually better to go and get the Flora armor, this one here, the 6v2, because it doesn't craft into anything. Packers at least craft into Aramid, whereas this doesn't craft into anything, it's just useless. But now that you can't throw it away and insure it, you're not going to get this 25k back. It's not really worth it. So I kind of feel like the bare minimum is the Kurakulon. This gives you class 3 protection, but it's only a single layer because it's soft armor. There's no plates in this. So you just get one layer of class 3, which is okay. It'll protect you against like PST. It gives you a chance maybe against like AP 6.3, or at least it decreases the damage. But anything that's like semi-reasonable, everybody's just going to go straight through this. So I don't really like it that much. The other one that's maybe an option is this guy, the 6B23 Propane Barter. This is an old classic, but the problem with this is that it doesn't have a backplate, so you're just left with class 2 armor on the back. And on the front, it is only class 3. It's 3 and 2. So against something like AP 6.3, it actually may well absorb it because the bullet has to go through the class 3 armor first and then the class 2 armor afterwards. But that's only really going to work with anything up to about 35 pen. After that, it's not going to do anything anymore. So anything like 545 BT and above is going to sail straight through. So I wouldn't invest a ton of resources into your armor at this stage. You might honestly even just be better off scavving and picking up people's class 4, because there is class 4 all over the place. Now, what are we going to pair this with? We're going to pair it with a rig. You don't really get armor rigs early on, and so we're going to use my favorite rig, which is this one, the CSA chest rig. This is genuinely my favorite rig in the game for most of the wipe, but this thing's really good because, as you can see, it only takes 6 slots up in the stash, but when you put it on, it gives you 10 slots worth of space. And the reason why this is super cool is that if you find another rig, you can just take this out and put it in your bag, and it effectively gives you 4 slots for free because it only takes up this space and it gives you this. And then you can put the other rig onto your character, and then you've basically just multiplied some of the slots in your bag. So I really like this as a space saving requirement. And because there's no insurance, we're more likely to be keeping our stuff rather than throwing it away, unless it's a mega upgrade. So with the no insurance, it's basically a no-brainer to use the CSA. I really like this one, and it's available level 1 traders, and it's really cheap. How much did we say it was? 13k? What is it from Ragman? 14,000 rubles. It's really nothing. It's not that much more than any of the others. Even just putting 1 bolt in the extra space in your bag will pay the whole thing back, basically, by the time you get to the fleet. So I love the CSA. I think the space-saving ability of it is really good, and there are some others like that. We're going to look at that in a bit, but we'll save that for the medium-tier kit. Backpacks are rather limited. You probably will have some at the beginning. I guess the best one that I like is this one here from Peacekeeper. You trade this in for an HDD. Obviously, you have to unlock Peacekeeper through the Tor quest lines. You have to go through the whole thing, and you have to basically go from Ragman through to Skier, through to, I think, Mechanic, and then Prapor, and then Peacekeeper. Takes a little bit of time, but once you've got him, then you can get an HDD there. They're 2 a penny inside computers, so you'll probably get them fairly often, if you run out, that is, or you could just scav, because your scav often will have one. The unfortunate thing is that on Ragman, the selection of bags is pretty poor at level 1 traders. I think the best one is the T bag, which is only 9 slots, so it's not really very good. At least both of these, I don't know why you'd ever buy a sling, but both of these you could fit a CSA inside, so then that'll make it a little bit bigger. You know, once that's inside, then it's effectively like another couple of slots on here, another 4 slots, which is a bit better. But you really want to be upgrading this as soon as you physically can to something bigger. I think the minimum that I would really want to go with is probably the MBSS, to be honest. Anything smaller than this is kind of hampering your ability to actually take stuff out of the raid, and ideally you want to have the ones with the extra slot, the Burkutts and those guys. You do get that one Scav backpack as well. That's the kind of thing we're talking about in terms of what you really want as a baseline for being able to get enough loot out. Okay, so we'll buy one of those just for argument's sake, and we'll just stick this on. I haven't bought the armor, but you know which ones we were talking about before. So now let's talk a little bit about consumables. So level 1 traders, you don't get a great deal, and it does kind of depend on which perks you picked. A lot of people picked like hemophilia, for example, which I picked, and it is actually slightly problematic. So what I would say to go with to begin with, just as a default benchmark baseline, is this as a bare minimum. So you want to go with 2 of these and 1 of these. And now I have my binds set, so I press 5 on this and I let go on 5 on this. So if I get a heavy bleed, it does this automatically. I have a hotkeys guide. I might redo my hotkeys guide actually for 1.1 because I haven't done one for a while, but if you just search Gigabeef hotkeys, I'm sure that will come up. These sort of double binds, I use them all over the place. I use them for fixing my gun when it gets jammed. I use them for meds. I use them for all sorts of stuff. But anyway, that aside, this is probably the bare minimum that you can get away with. And if you've got hemophilia, you may need to take more than just 1. If you don't have hemophilia on the perks, it's probably okay just to have 1 at the very beginning. But after, I don't know, a couple of raids, I'd probably just start taking 2. They're not even that expensive either. I think for Peacekeeper, they are only $57. So you probably want to have 2. And there is something that I'm going to say a bit later about the secure container, but I think we'll jump to that just now. We may as well, is that I think you should have either an AFAC or an IFAC in your secure container at all times when you're starting out. Basically, until you have Salewers, you should have a spare med in the backpack, because you should have a spare med in the secure container, because sometimes things hit the fan and this is just not enough. This only heals half of your body, but you don't want to be spending tons of cash on loads of cheese kits all the time, or filling your thing with cheese, because you just won't need them. A lot of raids you either die instantly or you don't get hit at all, or you just get hit a tiny little bit and you end up ticking like 10 health out of one of these things. So it's good having this for when things go terribly. I think it's worth putting it in there. And you could take a bandage as well if you really want to, but I tend not to, and that's because light bleeds are so cheap compared to heavies on these kits. In fact, I will show you both of these because you can do it with either of them. So you've either got the AFAC here, so this thing stops light bleeds for 30 HP, and I have the one that increases the requirement by 25%, but that's still hardly anything. That means it's like 38 or something, which is really nothing. But you can see the heavy bleed is 170 HP, which is why we really don't want to be using these kits for healing heavies. The IFAC is very similar, and this guy is also 30 HP for light bleeds as base, and 210 HP. So you're going to use most of the IFAC if you end up healing a heavy with it. So in an emergency, sure, it's better than dying to a heavy bleed, but if you can avoid it, much better off taking S-Marches or something like that, something cheap alongside the Cat Tourniquets to make sure that you don't actually have to do this. But the reason why we want these is because they are 1x1, so they fit in the secure container really nicely and they give you lots of space for having other things. Now, alongside these guys, you also want to pack a lot of these. I have been eating these like candy this entire wipe so far. It has been absolutely crazy. My chat has accused me of being addicted to painkillers, but it's true, because analgenes, they are really good. They give you 80 seconds of pain, and I would say 50% of people don't realize that the water downside on these analgenes has been removed. So you can eat these with no downside at all. So I am basically just like popping these things like candy the whole way through a raid. It does get kind of annoying to have to pop it every 1 minute and 20 seconds, but it's worth it. I think you need to be pre-pained at all times, and it's either very expensive or not possible to buy the good painkillers off the flea market. Things like ibuprofen and Golden Star, you can only buy those at level 25 plus. So at the beginning, really the analgenes is the only option. You can let it lapse sometimes while you're wandering about if you're in a really safe area, but you just don't want to get jumped by somebody who is shooting at your legs, and then you can't aim, you can't walk, you can't move, and you have to try and eat one of these on the fly. It's just not worth it. It's probably one of my biggest like newcomer tips for people surviving fights, is to be painkillered at all times. And I tried to push back against this painkiller meta for a really long time because I don't like it either particularly, but it's just such a necessity. I used to lose fights constantly because I wasn't painkillered, and so I just started painkillering religiously at all times, and it's really annoying. But this is probably going to be the biggest expense that you have in terms of meds, because these things are about 8,500 per, so you're spending like at least 16,000 rubles on painkillers, even if you just bring 2 packs. And that doesn't even really give you that much, because it's 80 times 8, which is going to end up giving you 640 seconds of painkiller, which is only 10 minutes. So if you're in raid for half an hour, you're only able to be painkillered for 1/3 of the time if you only take 2 packs, which is why I typically take 4. But you could be more conservative if you play a little bit more slowly and you're not running around quite as much as I probably am these days. So yeah, on this you could technically take a bandage if you wanted to for those sticky situations, especially if you have the haemophilia. You could also take a grenade if you want, if that's kind of the way that you fight, if you want to throw something to put people off if you do get into a sticky spot. But typically I don't really pack grenades in the early stages of the wipe. Okay, so we talked already about the AFAC going down in here, and I think this is pretty much required. What are we going to do with the other slots? Well, now that you can't put ammo in there, there's not actually that much good stuff that you can use with the Gamma, or even the standard container. It's mostly a lunchbox these days. And one of the big buffs to, I guess, characters in general, and closing the gap between standard and EOD and above players, is these special slots, and the fact that you can put CMS kits and Serve 12 kits up here, which means that you don't need them down here anymore. So standard account players can have a Serve 12 at all times without having to have it down in the pouch, because it doesn't fit into the alpha, which was one of the biggest issues between having the standard container and having the Gamma. So what else are we going to put down here? Well, effectively it ends up being a lunchbox most of the time. Often I'll just end up having a bottle of water and a piece of food in there, and that's really it. As you get further on, obviously you want to have a key tool. Some people got the key tool from some of the codes. So that's this guy here. And this one is the one that has 16 slots for keys. So this can be quite good for standard players in particular, because you're a bit space limited. So you can stick that down there. The other idea is the wallet. I don't think I have a regular wallet on me, but I do have Willer's wallets, which count for exactly the same thing. So you can use these, put these in the container and use cash in them. The other one is the Gingy keychain, You should look out for these on scavs as well because they act like actual key rings. So you can put keys in here without having to have a keychain, and you can just find them out in the raid. Don't think you can buy them on the FLEA until level 25. So again, look out for Willer's wallets, normal wallets, and Ginger keychains because they'll provide you a bit of utility to bridge the gap between getting something actually proper like a key tool and a docs case, but stopping you from having to put each individual key in here, especially if you're a standard player. Eventually, we'll put long-term painkillers in here, but for now, we can't buy them, so we'll avoid thinking about that until the mid-tier kits. The final part is the special slots. We already talked about the Serve 12. What I would do early is just leave one slot open or use it for a marker, a Wi-Fi camera, a jammer, whatever it is that you need for your quests, and put the rest down in the container down here. The one thing that you should get as often as you can is the green flare. Buy these from Jaeger. So basically get Jaeger unlocked, do introduction with mechanic, get Jaeger unlocked, and then buy these green flares, and make sure that you're taking them to all of the maps that have a green flare exfil. There's actually quite a lot of them now. There's Ground Zero. There is technically a guaranteed green flare on Ground Zero, but if somebody else takes it, you want to be able to get out through it. You need to take one to Woods as well, because it stops you running all the way down to outskirts and gives you a little bit of a shortcut. Saved my life quite a few times when I'm cutting it really fine and I've got 50 seconds left to extract, and I would have died, or gone MIA at least, if I didn't have the green flare to get out of Powerline Passage. You've also got one on Interchange now, out of the Smuggler's Camp. This gives you a different exfil to use that isn't Railway or Emacom, and this means that you're less likely to get exfil camped, which is quite nice. So it's really good there, and also Smuggler's Camp is quite good for loot, so you can loot up and then leave immediately, which is really, really cool. And the final one is Customs. Now this one is actually pretty spicy at this point, because the Customs green flare is right in the middle of the map, which makes it really handy. It's right next to Fortress, but it means that I probably get shot at a green flare maybe every third or fourth time I use it, so you do have to be kind of on the ball, make sure you've got enough stamina, make sure you're painkilled when you run into there. But it is really, really good because it stops you from having to either go all the way over to Crossroads and Trailer Park, or over to the bunker extracts on the other side in the factory area. So I do really, really like the green flare. I rate it super, super highly. And the fact that it only costs 6k from Jaeger and it goes in the special slot, it's basically a no-brainer to take with you. I normally just keep it in here because inevitably I will forget. Oh, and Streets as well, of course. Streets with the Klimov exfil. You really want it for that as well, because sometimes you have an awkward extract and it's much easier to go out of Klimov. There's two ways out of Klimov, left and right. I prefer going down the left-hand side. It actually works out of both. You do have to be careful about clipping the buildings on Streets of Tarkov, but I prefer going out the left side, if possible, over on the Klimov Trading Center, because you don't have to run down the street in the open. You're basically behind a walled section, and it's very, very difficult for somebody to camp you there. I will just backtrack 1 second and talk about customs, in that they have actually changed the customs exfil. It's not quite as strict as it used to be. You still need to get the right height on the flare, but you can now run down the embankment a bit at least. You don't have to run right on the train tracks. So this has helped somewhat. I've done it a couple of times. It does work. People told me that it works for them. Some people have said it still had an unfortunate end for them, but I think they probably didn't get the flare quite high enough because it is still a little fiddly for that. So yeah, anyway, green flare, I love it. Should be taking it with you as soon as possible. Get Jaeger unlocked ASAP. This is the main reason that I want to get him unlocked, actually, because the green flare is just so good. It's so powerful, and it lets you escape a lot more raids than you would otherwise. So yes, if you leave one slot free, if you're not doing a task, then you can basically pick up CMSs, serve kits, paracords, and other things that go into the special slot and just take them away for free. So it's sometimes nice having one spare space if you're not actually going to be using it for anything. So the only thing left really is to talk about the weapon. However, there's so many things that go into this, and everything's so dictated by ammo right now because a lot of players are using class 4 armor because of the drops. So I would just refer you over to the level 1 traders weapons guide instead for this particular loadout, because it's too much to go through in this individual video. If I was just going to pick one thing though, it would go to Scav, Reserve, go to the roofs of the pawn building, and then use an AK-74U with relatively competitive ammo, which is either BT and above. So that's BT, BP, BS, Igolnik, 7M40. Easy. That's what I would do. But go and watch that video if you want some more inspiration, because there's lots of choices. All right, next up, we're going to look at the mid-tier gear set, and this involves getting to level 15, opening the flea market, but you're kind of level locked on a lot of the individual requirements for getting specific pieces of gear. So we'll start again at the top, and we're going to look at headsets. You can now pick whichever headset you like. There aren't any headsets that are locked behind levels, which is really quite nice. So whatever you preferred in previous Tarkov wipes, you can use. There's quite a big difference in pricing between a lot of the different headsets. I know some people like the Sword-ins, and these are about 60k. The one that I would watch out for is the Comtacs, because Contact 6s are technically the best headset in the game, and you wouldn't think so based on their price. 80k actually isn't that much. It probably is a little bit too much at this level, but maybe you want to look at the next one, which is the Contact 5s, which is a little bit cheaper. A lot of the others you're not actually getting for that much less. Maybe Contact 4 is a little bit lower, and Contact 2s are a bit cheaper than that, but it's really up to you. I love the Contact 5s personally. Make sure you don't buy the ones that are going to go onto the exfil headset thinking you're getting a bargain. You won't be able to fit it to any helmets, but I really like these. These are my favorite. They're so similar to the Contact 6s, but the reason why these are cheap is that these can be found on Black Division on Icebreaker. And so there's a lot more of these than you would normally find in the economy, which has kind of compressed the prices of all the headsets, so they're not too bad. Now, it does hurt a bit, the fact that there's no insurance. So if you do want to go something cheaper, I wouldn't blame you. And if I was just going to go something really cheap, run-of-the-mill, I'd just go back to the M32s, honestly, because I think they sound quite good, but it really is personal preference. Then we're going to fit this to a helmet. Now, unfortunately, you don't really get that much helmet choices at level 2 traders. The best one is probably the Ratnik, the 6B47 Ratnik, although this is only class 3. But the issue that you have is that all of the level 4 helmets are all 20 plus on the flea market. I'll go through the list of those for the last kit that we're going to do, but for the time being, if you don't have anything else, this Ratnik helmet is probably the next best. There is a barter over on Ragman. This used to be really cheap, this guy, the 6B47 Ratnik in white, but you probably don't want white for a start, and Ox Bleach is actually really pricey now. A lot of these things have got really expensive. So you can buy either the white one or the regular one, but Bleach is typically more expensive than just buying the other one just outright. But it's up to you. Maybe if you craft it or you look out for good pricing or whatever, maybe you can get that relatively cheaply. So now we're going to look at the balaclavas. Now at level 2, you get a bit more option. You can either go for the Shimarian Tan or the Colfear balaclava. You could pick either of these depending on exactly how you want your PMC to look. It doesn't really make much difference over the balaclava, but it's worth having either one of them, and on different maps, one or the other might be better for you. Really just down to aesthetics rather than practicality at this stage. Now, here is where the armor situation gets a bit more complicated, because you can't really buy anything that good at level 2 traders. The best one is probably this 6B5 Ulay. The armor shortage thing has meant that you don't really get that much good stuff, but this one you have to do So It Good Part 2, and this one is okay. I mean, I will just make a note of this before we look at how to get good class 4 armor using the flea market, but this is probably the only rig that's like kind of worth using. I still think 100k is too much, honestly, but this one is class 4 all over, so it's chest, back and groin, and it's only class 2 around the neck. The problem with the other rigs that you get at this level, these sort of low tier budget rigs, is this one, although it says armor 4, it's only 4 on the front, and it ends up being 2 at the back. And because it's not plates either, you don't get 2 layers. So there's lots of missing benefit here. There's also another one which is even worse, which is the one over on Prapor, which is this guy. And this one is even worse because it's 3 at the front and 2 at the back. Genuinely bad. I wouldn't really buy these. So what are we going to do instead? Once you get to level 15 on the flea market, you can't buy these armor plates until you're a lot higher level. These things are, I think, level 30, something like this. But what you can do is you can go and look up armors on the fleet, and you could buy them with the plates already in them. So I've got a list that I usually use. I start with the MMAC, and what we're going to do is we're going to click on this, and we're going to look through the list. So most of these here, you can see on this little icon, armor plate, and this is 0 out of 4. So most of these are empty, but as we scroll down, we may find some that actually have something in there. So here you can see it has a class 4 plate, and it is 46 out of 50. If we look at this, it's probably a MMAC. I was going to say it's probably a monoclete, but it actually isn't. This one is a Omega Ballistics. So these aren't very good because these are 4.3 kilograms. Now the MMAC doesn't spawn with Omega Ballistics, it spawns with monocletes, which is the reason why we're looking at it in the first place. So whoever's selling this has put this in there themselves and is selling it off. I don't think they're purposefully trying to scam anybody because they haven't put 2 plates in here, but you could easily be misled into buying something that's kind of rubbish. So let's keep going. This one's only got 1 in as well. What's this one? This is actually a monoclete plate in the back. And what we're looking for is we're looking for this. So we're looking for class 4 plates that are full durability, really, and hopefully it'll be monocletes. And you can see from the icons here, these found in raid ones, is that these came actually with the rig. This is how the rig spawns, which is why we're looking for these in particular. Now they are kind of expensive. This, I would say at 100k, this is much better than the Ulay that we just looked at on Ragman, which was over 100k already. This gives you class 4 with class 2 underneath it, which is already much better than just having class 4 on its own. Although it doesn't have neck protection, but it does have a really nice layout. This makes it quite good. So we'll look through that. We'll just do one quick refresh and just scan down and see if we see any 2s. There's one here, 96k, that's just appeared. All right, so MMAC's the first one. The next one is the Banshee. Now you know the principle, we can speed it up a little bit. So Banshee, we'll scroll down, down and down and down and down. There's one here at 93k, that one's pretty good. This is also monocletes, which is why we tend to look for this too. And it also has a nice internal rig. This also means you can use either 10 rounders for the Saiga, or you can use 45 rounders for the AK platform, or 40s for the M4 if you have access to that, because we have these 3 slots, which is quite nice. So that one's maybe a goer. Sometimes you find them much cheaper because people just throw them up, they don't realize. So it's always worth keeping an eye out for these, especially if you don't have enough class 4 armor. Next one is the Trooper. This comes from a lot of players, so because you get given these when you first start. Now, this is actually really expensive, so this is just no-go. There's no way that we're even going to be looking at this, to be honest with you. Sometimes it's worth taking off the filter as well, just for things that are broken, because we can repair these pretty easily. And now we'll move down the list a little bit further. So there's another one, which is called the Eclipse, which is pretty good, but it doesn't come with monocleats, unfortunately. So we'll scroll down here. This one doesn't look like a goer either. These ones aren't too bad. It's the Kibber Arms Titan Ballistics. These are 2.2 kilos, so they're not terrible. Titanium repairs okay. It's kind of expensive-ish. It's not as good as the monocleat plates, but it's all right. So if you find one of these cheaply, that's fine. And also it has really nice space inside, which is good. The other one is the OTV. This is a bit like the Trooper because it's just a vest. And this one is in UCP. These are sometimes cheap because people don't really use this armor that much. As you can see, these ones are also quite expensive at the moment. And these ones come with Spartan Elafroses, which are probably the next best, I would say, but they are only ceramic. So they're not going to be able to be repaired through multiple raids, which is the biggest issue with these. But they're okay on weight at least. So in priority order, you want to be looking for the MMAC, the Banshee, the Trooper, and then the Eclipse, and then the Interceptor OTV. If you really are struggling and you can't find anything, I would then widen the search out a bit to the Eastern armors. So we're going to go for the 6B13 FLEA. These often get put in at the wrong price because these ones come from scavs and they're made of armor steel, so they repair really well. This has been through a few cycles of repair already, you can see, because it's at max durability, but it's lower than what the maximum could be, like what it was when it started. We've also got the one in EMR as well. This one is also kind of pricey, so you do have to be on it and you do have to be paying attention, make sure that you can get these armors on the flea market. So I think at the moment it probably looks like the best value ones are like the 93k ones that we saw, the rigs, which is not too bad, but armor's kind of expensive these days, honestly. It's relatively expensive. But sometimes you can find a bargain looking through these, and it's much better than what you can buy on the trader, which is the most important part. So back to our rigs. To be honest with you, I'm not sure if I would really upgrade from the CSA. I think the CSA is still pretty good. You could technically go for something like this. I don't know if it's really worth it. It's all right, 43k, I suppose it's fine. The benefit of these is that because they're only 3x3, but they give you 12 slots inside, they're also quite efficient, so you can stick these in your backpack. I do prefer the way that the CSA fits because it's only 2x3 rather than being 3x3. So for certain orientations of weapons and things, the CSA fits a bit more neatly depending on exactly what it is that you've picked up. But you could potentially use this, and it technically does give you slightly more space just because you've got a bigger area in your backpack that is expanding space out, right? You've gone from 9 to 16, which is effectively giving you an extra 7, whereas the CSA is only going from 6 to 10 and only giving you an extra 4. So there's like a 3-slot difference of efficiency between the two, net, if you think about it that way. So this is a potential option, but there's nothing wrong with just using the CSA. This one also is pretty good, the Gearcraft. This is also kind of the same. It's 1 kilogram, so it's slightly heavier than this one, but it's quite a lot cheaper. So maybe this one's the best one to go for. So it depends on really whether you're like managing the weight of your character or not, because remember, if you're overweight, then you won't be leveling endurance because of the way that the skills work, which is kind of unfortunate. It's how people end up really like mismanaged between endurance and strength. They have really high strength, really low endurance because they're always overweight, because they go in overweight and then they're picking up stuff and they never end up leveling endurance, which is kind of a wasted opportunity. So I do try to manage weight if I can. Onto bags though, there is a good barter for bags here, which is these two, because you can barter for a Cordura and you can make Cordura in the hideout. Cordura is also not that expensive usually, 22k, which is typically cheaper than you're able to buy these bags. Just generally, it's cheaper than an MBSS. So this is probably what I would do. I think this is a really good deal. You can only get 1 of these per round, whereas you can get 2 of these. Having the big white bag on the back is not amazing. So it depends on how much you value concealment, honestly. This is obviously preferable for most maps, but if you're playing Ground Zero or Labs or something, then you probably don't really care, or Factory, don't really care about having the white bag. So that gives you 3 bags per cycle that you could technically go and use, and Cordura makes it really cheap. So that's probably my efficient choice for bags from Ragman Level 2. So we'll go and buy one of these now. We'll swap it over with the MBSS. Now, in terms of consumables, we are now going to be using the car first aid kit as a bare minimum. So you get this after doing Healthcare Privacy Part 1 with therapists. They've changed it all up. And this means that we definitely don't need to worry about light bleeds anymore, because these will be dealt with here for 50 HP and they can't deal with the heavy. So again, we're going to fall back to our AFAC as an absolute last resort, but hopefully we're bringing more than one cat tourniquet at this point, or even just regular hemostats. and you can put this in here, and you could always take an S-March if you're really worried about it, just here as backup, just to make sure that you're going to be all right. But between the car first aid kit and the AFAC in the container, then it should be okay. One of the benefits for the car over the cheese or the IFAC or the AFAC is that this will heal up to 70 hit points in one go. So if you look at the body health pool, the cheese kit and the AFAC will only heal 50. So if you get shot more than 50 HP on your thorax, it won't heal you in one go, which is pretty annoying. And it also won't heal a full left arm, right arm, stomach, or any of your legs. Whereas the car first aid kit will heal any limb to full except the thorax if it's lower than 15 HP. So it pretty much covers all bases. The AFAC somewhere in the middle, it heals 60. I don't know if it says on it actually. I don't think it does. It's just on the wiki. You have to look for it, unfortunately. But this means that most of the time you will full heal with the car, outside of very specific scenarios where your thorax really does take a beating. Now, remember the car first aid kit in a second. We'll talk about that in one moment. But before we do, let's have a look at the secure container again. Now, I don't think really anything changes here particularly. It's still mostly a lunchbox. You probably do want to be grabbing a docs case as soon as you can at some point. There are, again, certain quest blinds that allow you to get the docs case, so you can go look it up, see which quest it is that it gives it to you, but you'll probably just stumble into it eventually. But my secure container didn't really look that much different when I was at this particular point in time. And the same thing with the special slots as well. It looks remarkably similar because at this stage, nothing has really changed. The most important stuff is up here. The only thing that I would say is that with the Serve 12 kit, obviously you can't buy this until really high level, like I said before. But with the CMS, you also can't get that until flea market level 20. You can buy it over on Jaeger at level 2 traders, but it's quite expensive, and there is a better way. Now, because we're using car first aid kits anyway, in level 1 med station, you can actually turn a medical tools, which are really common, a car first aid kit, and also an aluminium splint into a CMS if you're really desperate. And one of the great things about this is that you can use a car first aid kit with any health durability on it. So even if this is down to 1 out of 220, you can stick it through this craft. And there's 2 that you could use the car first aid kit, which is nice. So basically, every time you go into raid and you've used a bit of it, say you've only got 100 left, just keep it because you'll be able to craft something else with it. There's another one for Salewa as well, 2 of these, and 2 of the regular tourniquets, the S-Marches, that will turn into a Salewa. So this is pretty good. It means that you've got a use for the car first aid kits, and you're not just selling them back to therapists once they go down to near zero durability, which is nice and efficient. I'm actually going to go and buy our headset just for demonstration purposes, and we'll put a Contact 6 on just because it's one that I quite like. You might want to consider putting a grenade in at the moment, because now you're starting to stack up a little bit, and obviously you've got to take ammo with your loadout as well. I excluded that because we've not added any magazines or anything to this particular loadout, but you've got to take some ammo with you. It's the one final thing that you need that doesn't fit in the secure container, so it can kind of just go anywhere. And that's going to be dictated again by your weapon, so go and look at the level 2 weapons guide for that one in particular to go and see what I like over there. There's too much to go through at this point, but if you're going to get something from the traders, then it's either going to be like the VSK with SP5 from Prapor. Most of the time, it's just going to be with whatever ammo you found in raid. And I did an ammo guide as well recently. I've done quite a few things. These kind of things all sort of interlink, right? So depending on what ammo you've got from the ammo guide, then you might want to run something else. But as I said, for the level 1 stuff, the easiest way is just to get 545 and use those guns. I do find they get a bit dull after a while, which is why I want to use other stuff, but it's probably the easiest, surefire, tried and tested way of getting something that's going to beat other PMCs at this point. Okay, so the final section we're going to do is for the kind of proper mid-game loadout, I would say, which is allowing you a good base to start the rest of the game with, and this is when you get to level 20. This unlocks a lot of the helmets. So moving up from a class 3 helmet to a class 4 helmet on the regular does make quite a big difference, and you can scroll through. I do wish there were some more filters here to allow you to specify armor and that kind of thing. You can see on the flea market, these anti-helmets are really cheap, but they're only class 3. So the ones that we're interested in are usually starting at about 50k, 40k, something in that region. We'll see where we get to. And here we go. This is the first set. So there's a couple of different families or groupings of helmet that I think are quite good. This one is the MTech Strike series ballistic helmet. This one's in Coyotes. Probably why people don't really want this one, because it's basically like having a tan bauble on the top of your head. And the same thing with the MTech Flux, is you've got a white top on your head as well. But for class 4, I do think these are pretty decent. So if you look down the list here, basically any of the bastions are good. So these ones are the black ones, the multicam ones, and the OD green ones. These are all class 4, and these are all decent. But these are usually 60k plus, something like that. If we scroll down, we've then got, these are too expensive probably, you can't buy them anyway. Then you've got the other bastion helmet, which is the Diamond Age bastion. This historically has been quite a lot of money because you used to be able to put the class 6 plate thing on the front. Well, you still can technically, but it's just super rare now, so you don't really see it very much. Then the next set is the Hycom Striker series. These ones are always usually really expensive as well, because these have been in the game for a long time and people are aware of them, and they're usually in relatively nice colors. You obviously have the Cursed Tan Ulak. This one, although it gives you decent protection, it's one of the only class 4 helmets that gives you ears as well, whilst also being able to wear a headset. This thing will get you killed quite often, so a lot of people prefer to have the ULAC in black. It's the reason why the prices are so different. And then you end up in my favorite set, which is the TC series. These are usually relatively cheap compared. They're kind of expensive now, but you can often find these in the 50s. So it's the 2001, the 2002, that's a bargain. I'm just going to buy that straight up. And the TC 800. These are all basically the same helmet. They just give you head, top, and nape. So it may look like they give you a little bit of ear protection on one versus the other, but they're actually the same. It's just head, top, and nape, head, top, and nape. So they're exactly the same helmet. There's a tiny durability difference between these two, which makes practically no difference whatsoever. So those are usually the ones that I prefer to have. We saw these a second ago, these MTech Strikes. You can get these in Coyote and Coyote Multicam. You can also get the Fluxes in this kind of green color as well, but then they're kind of priced in line with everything else. So if you just want something at any cost, probably just go for one of these winter camo ones, because at least it gives you plus 4. But I typically tend to stay with the ones that are at least green or black, ideally. Those are better for allowing you to blend in. But again, depends on the map, depends on whether you're playing with a squad or solo. Solos are probably more likely to want to blend in. If you're playing with a squad, it matters a bit less because you'll be making noise and moving around anyway. And it might even be better to be identifiable by your team. So pros and cons to all of these things. So up we go with our TC 2002. Obviously you can wear any headset that you like and any face cover that you want. We could go for green Shamar at this point. Armor wise, we're still going to be class 4 hunting on the flea market because you can't buy class 5 armor anymore at the traders. I don't think you can buy them even at level 4 traders. I've been off for the past couple of days, so I've not really been leveling up that much. But you used to be able to get certain things at Prapor 3, like the Karun plate with the class 5 in it. You can't really do that anymore. So you're just going to have to stick with the class 4s and use class 5 and 6 front plates where you can. Now, the only thing that I would say about this is that you probably want to keep one of these. I have a couple of them from Black Division, but you want to keep one of these GAC 3S15Ms because there is a task from Ragman that I haven't completed. Unfortunately, I died using my Zabralo over on a Prapor quest. I should have kept it and not bothered doing it, but you have to hand over a Zabralo and you can only buy another one once you're at Prapor 4, which I'm not. Once you've done that, you can then craft the 511 Tactec, and this guy has 2 GAC plates inside, but it only costs 1 to craft it. So you can generate class 5 plates out of thin air using the Tactic craft without having to have access to class 5 armor or anything. So you can then build this in the hideout. And in the hideout these days, we have crafting level 51. So you make things super quickly. They halve the craft times anyway for a lot of this stuff, and you can craft 2 things at once. So there's really no downside to just making this constantly. Pretty cool. Rigs wise, you can carry on using the CSA if you want. My favorite for the mid game is this, the direct action Thunderbolt. This is quite cheap, but it is one of the lightest rigs with the space in it. This is very similar to the other one we looked at, but it's only 0.6 per kilogram rather than 0.9. This thing takes up 9 squares, but gives you 16. So it's similar to the one that we looked at for the middle tier loadouts for level 15 plus, except it's even lighter, which is super, super cool. So I'm probably going to move up to this, and then it stacks into your bag really nicely if you're using bags that are a little bit bigger. Now, clearly you can still use the Kojura craft to do this one, because this is just one of the best bags you can get for value's sake. But if you do want to do something slightly different, have something a bit bigger than this, it's pretty decent anyway. If you do want something slightly bigger, it's always worth a flick through just to see which bags are selling off relatively cheaply. And you probably want to jump a couple of pages because people aren't going to be selling them too low down. The Mystery Ranch one gives you 30, and this is actually really cheap. It does have kind of an annoying slot mechanic in here, and you could see why now I'm a bit antsy about taking the 3-slot rigs for doing space maximization, because, well, if you have a weird bag like this, well, where does it go? It goes like that, and then you've got like these 3 individual slots down here and then just 2 down there. It all gets a bit strange. So if you want something normal, I know a lot of people like the Hazard 4 takedown. There's no point because that is actually less space than the other bag that we just talked about with the Kojura. If we keep going, you usually can find something fairly decent. As I said, the Mystery Ranch is good, but people can kind of see you coming around corners if you lean, which is not amazing, but it is super, super cheap. So the next best one is probably this guy, the Evilstock Switchblade, 75k. You do get a big discount for taking the one with the horns. But this one's good because it gives you the 30 slots. You've also got the Camelback, which is 30 slots as well. So you can sometimes find some good deals on the marketplace. And you're going to get a bit of extra space in these. Otherwise, you could just use this Mystery Ranch one because these guys are pretty cheap. They come off scavs, and they're the biggest bag, I think, outside the Pilgrim that you can get. Because I don't believe you can put the Pilgrim on the FLEA, at least as far as I remember. Consumables wise, we're actually now just going to swap over from this. At Therapist 3, you can get the Hemostat. This is pretty much worth it. at all times, and we're going to get a Solera as well. The thing about the hemostat is that it's only 16,500. Prices have gone up over time, but if you then look at the price of an S-March Tourniquet, this is 4,200. So buying 3 of these, which is effectively what the hemostat gives you, that's about 12,500 anyway. So you don't really lose that much. It's only 3k to have the one that's 3-in-1, and it means you don't have to be rebinding. It just helps in raid, especially if you get into a really sticky situation. You can still use Analgens, but at this point you might want to start putting a long-term painkiller down here, either a Vaseline, an ibuprofen, or a Golden Star, either if you find them or you're able to buy them. The Golden Stars and the ibuprofens are still worth saving and holding onto for later on, because you can turn them into Propitols. So here you get 4 Propitols, and you need to use a Golden Star Balm and an ibuprofen along with 2 of these piles of meds. And you can use the Golden Stars even when they're 1 out of 5, and the ibuprofens when they are 1 use left as well. As you can see, I've kept some of these at 2 because I don't really want to go into raid and just use it once. So I'm going to keep these until I have an ibuprofen that's suitable. But ibuprofens are currently a bit expensive over on the flea market, but that's a good way to kind of recoup your money, because Propitols are also quite expensive, and you could technically just either use them yourself or sell them back. Secure container, nothing really new at this point. You probably do want either the docs case or the sick case, depending on whether you're taking a ton of PMC dog tags. Do you think maybe there's a bit more value in the sick case, this wipe, because we have the Black Division dog tags as well, if you're going to Icebreaker, which you may well do, or if you just bump into the Black Division out in the raid. I have never seen Black Division anywhere other than Icebreaker this wipe, which is kind of mad. Admittedly, I've not played labs, but I've not seen them on streets or shoreline or anywhere like that. Maybe for the best, I don't know. But that does kind of give a bit more value to the sick case, although it is a lot more expensive than the docs usually. But you should probably have at least a docs case at this point, because you're going to be wanting to put keys in it, money, other stuff, because you might want to use the BTR or the car extract or doing quest rooms, ammo rooms, whatever else. The only thing that I would say about the final setup for us here is that with the special slot, you're probably going to want to invest in the paracord and the Red Rebel at some point. Let's have a look and see how much they are. I think I bought mine for 2 mil. Yeah, so this is really cheap, 1.1 mil. This is so inexpensive. I don't think the barter's even worth this, to be honest with you. And it's so good to be able to get out of shoreline, out of the top of the resort, and also out of reserve. Just makes the map so much easier. It's genuinely for a reserve that you need it, to be honest. That's the main reason, but it's nice to have it on shoreline as well. Then you can just kind of mix and match. You can swap paracord, serve kit, or CMS, and the flare in and out, as long as you don't need it for cameras or anything like that. And then that will pretty much set you up for getting out of every raid through any eventuality, which is always nice to have those extra exit options, especially when a particular extract that you need to go to is hairy. Just gives you that flexibility that you need to be able to extract and survive. So the guns that you're going to want to run really does depend on the ammo that you find. So next up, go and watch my ammo finding video if you haven't seen it already. I will also be doing level 3 traders very soon. Jaeger doesn't want to level up for me because I can't find the bosses. I'm having terrible spawn chance problems, and all my quests revolve around finding bosses for him, but I'll have that done next probably once I have got him to level 3 and we can go through the entire series properly. But until then, go watch the ammo video. I hope this has helped. As always, a big shout out to all my patrons, and as usual, have fun in your raids.